First, as you know, we are going to the Shadowlands. When you get there, you're going to quest through 4 different zones. In the context of those zones, you're going to learn about the 4 different covenants that rule over them. And then when you get to max level, level 60, you're going to get the opportunity to make a choice of one and only one of these covenants. Which one do you want to join? Let's review what these covenants are and what they're all about. First up is the Kyrians. They're the denizens of Bastion. Their role in the Shadowlands is to shuttle souls from the world of the living to the world of the dead. They're all about purity and humility and righteousness, good stuff like that. Up next are the Necrolords. These guys, their role in the Shadowlands is to defend the plane against outside invaders. They're comprised of abominations, spies, warlords, very much kind of a proto-scourge vibe. The Night Fae. These are the denizens of Ardenweald. Their role in the business of the Shadowlands is to shepherd the cycle of life and death. When a powerful wild god or powerful character of nature dies and passes into the Shadowlands, the Night Fae will help bring them back to health so that they can return to the land of the living again. And lastly, the Venthyr. These guys live in Revendreth. Sounds like we maybe have some Venthyr fans. They're the punishers of the unworthy. If you were evil in life, sinful or prideful and the like, you might get sent to Revendreth, and the Venthyr will bring you low so that you can be built back up again as a functioning member of the Shadowlands. There's a lot of choices that are factors that are involved in making this choice of which covenant you want to join. Let's discuss what those are. First up, your covenant sanctum. This is a place you're going to be spending a lot of time, not unlike your faction hall that you had, or your class hall that you had in Legion. So think to yourself, where do you want to spend time in Shadowlands? Do I want to be in a glittering city in the sky with the Necrolords? Do I want to be staying in this big, awesome-looking skeletal statue of a warlord? Do I want to be in the glittering, galaxy-surrounded vale in the middle of the forest? Or in a spooky vampire castle? The choice is yours. Next big thing to consider, the abilities they're going to teach you. The first is a Covenant ability, which everyone in the Covenant learns, independent of your class. This is a non-combat ability typically, although you can use a lot of them in combat. I like to say it's a way that you can solve a problem without fighting it. As an example, let's look at the Night Phase Covenant ability, Soul Shape. With this, you turn into a spirit fox. It gives you a short dash, and also, during the duration, enemies ignore you. It lasts for 10 seconds, or as long as you want if you're in a rest area. So there's a couple applications here. You can use it to just run forward pretty quickly. You can use it to skip a couple creatures you don't want to fight for one reason or another. Or you could just hang out as a fox. One cool thing about this ability, which isn't reflected in the tooltip, is that it's customizable. There's a number of different creatures. A number of different creatures in Ardenweald that you can choose to be. So maybe you're more of a Glimmerfly, more of a Rune Stag. There may even be some rare prestige appearances that you can unlock as part of your Covenant campaign. That is the Night Fae ability. Unburden is the Kyrian ability. It's playable on the show floor. This is a much faster dash. You get 300% faster. Lasts a little bit longer, but also you can kind of use it to float across canyons and things like that. It also will reduce the radius at which enemies detect you, so you can kind of sneak around things. The Necrolords get Transcend the Flesh. This is one of my favorite new abilities, where you pull your soul out from your body, leaving your body behind, and you can kind of walk around in the spirit world. And meanwhile, your body stays behind and keeps doing whatever you were doing before. If you were just in town, it'll just stand around. If you were fighting a creature, it'll kind of dumbly keep fighting it, maybe use 1 or 2 of your abilities. And you can do whatever you want. You can fall down a cliff and not take damage because you're a spirit, right? You can run behind a tree and then pull your body back to you and confuse whatever you were fighting before. Lots of creative applications. Lastly is Door of Shadows, the Venthyr ability. This is probably the most straightforward. You just pick a location, and then poof, within a couple seconds, you're there. Very similar to Reaper Teleport in Overwatch, or Overwatch 2, if you're familiar with those games. You're also going to learn a class ability. This fits in the space, in the intersection of what your Covenant is all about and your class is all about. This is a way to solve problems by murdering them. Classic World of Warcraft ability. It should feel kind of like your artifact active abilities from a couple expansions past. As an example today, let's look at the Kyrian Mage ability, Radiant Spark. Okay, so this ability does arcane damage independent of whatever your spec is. All mages will learn this if they join the Kyrian. It also deals damage over time. And during that window of 8 seconds, your next 4 attacks will deal, the first one does 25% additional damage, and then 50%, and then 75%, and finally 100% additional damage, letting you pull off some really cool combos if you can manage to fit those abilities in time. We're going to use Mage for our other examples as well. If a Mage joins the Necrolords, they'll get Contagion Bolt. Has kind of a similar container to Radiant Spark, but it plays a lot differently. It deals shadow damage, which is correct for a Mage. In this case, and in this case, your next damaging attacks will splash plague damage to nearby enemies. So if you want to have another AoE button in your rotation, you might consider joining the Necrolords with your Mage. The Night Fae have a completely different one. This is Shifting Power, where they're all about kind of balancing energies within the forests, and you get to do this by kind of pulling energy out from the ground, channeled over 3 seconds. Every second you channel will grant you haste, so you can use it as a self-buff, and it also damage enemies nearby. And lastly, the Venthyr have Mirrors of Torment. So the Venthyr in their zone will use mirrors to kind of reflect the sun's light and punish their enemies. You can do this to punish your enemies by joining the Venthyr, and we'll make 3 mirrors kind of rotate around your target, and anytime they do anything, cast a spell, use an ability, they'll be rooted and take damage. Okay, stepping back a little bit, story time. Soul binds. Within the story of the Shadowlands, any 2 characters can choose to bind their souls together. This could be the result of a powerful friendship, a romantic relationship, or just very close brothers or sisters in arms. But when these 2 characters choose to go through this ritual, each one will get some power from the other one. When you join a covenant, you get to bind your soul to characters as well. Here's some you might bind to in the Venthyr covenant. On the left, you'll see Theatar, the Mad Duke. If I bind my soul to him, a passive ability I might learn is Arrogance. Basically, I deal more crit to creatures who have a lower health percentage than me, because, haha, I'm better than you. Nadja, she's more of a fencer, very good with the sword, and so she'll increase your parry rating if you bind with her. If you don't know how to parry, she'll teach you how to parry. Okay, the point here is that this is a way to unlock new power over time. After you get to maximum level, you'll continue to increase your character's power by increasing your relationship with these characters. You can also customize your relationship and the power that they give you with a new item type called Conduits. Here's an early look at what the UI might look like in-game. This is Theatar's ability. You can see up at the top there, that's Arrogance. That's where I'd get that ability. I have a choice for another ability if I don't like this one. Here in the middle, this is a Conduit where I've chosen to put in a survivability ability, which will give me DR, damage reduction, at low health. Alternately, I could put in this ability, which improves my healing. So without getting into too much detail, the point here is to give you a system which allows you to choose the soulbind which best suits you. You should be able to choose these for whatever reason you like. Maybe you like the way that Theatar's abilities feel. Maybe you think that Nadja is better because she has higher damage throughput. Maybe you just like the way that Theatar looks. You like that Ripon 8-pack that he's representing. Those are all valid reasons to be able to choose, and you should be able to do so. You can also switch soulbinds fairly easily as switching talents. Just pop a talent tome or whatever, and you can switch your soulbinds to counter a particular challenge. And of course, these are big characters that have rich inner lives, and you're going to learn a lot about them as you adventure with them in the Shadowlands. I would like to point out these are not necessarily bodyguards. The nature of the soulbind is you get their power even if they're far, far away. So you're not going to have them following you around all the time. Okay, in addition, you're also going to get lots of cool stuff. There's weapons and armor which really reflect the aesthetics of what your covenant is about, including backpack-style cloaks. I call them backpack-style, but really it's like cloaks that aren't just a piece of cloth, right? And I'll show you some examples in a moment. There's a mount, which is upgradable. So this is one of the prime ways that you can show how far you've really pressed your relationship with your covenant. There's world benefits. In the case of Maldraxxus with the Necrolords, you can build your own abomination. We've called it Build-A-Bomb internally, where you kind of put together a head and arms and weapons, and he will follow you around as a bodyguard in that zone as a perk of being a Necrolord. Other covenants will get different perks. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that there's a full covenant campaign which kind of defines your end game story, depending on which covenant you've joined. Let's take a look at some of those armor sets. These are the 4 plate sets. Kyrians, Necrolords, Night Fae, and Revendreth. Some back attachments. There's a wing look for the Kyrians. This is one of the sigils of one of their temples. And lastly, kind of a halo-y shield look. So, okay, there's a lot of factors that going in to make this choice, and it's the one that you should consider all these factors before you make it. I do want to point out that it is possible to change your covenant if you feel like you've made a mistake or you want to meet someone new, but it will take some time to build up your relationship with your new allies.
Is this idea of returning to class from spec. So let's say you're going to make a priest in Battle for Azeroth. So you make a level 1 priest. Well, actually, you make a level 1 discipline priest. And then you play from 1 to 10, and you're that discipline priest, and you hit 10, and you're like, well, now I want to be Shadow. So you select Shadow, and like half your buttons fly away, all these new buttons appear, a lot of things change, and it's not even like you change specs and you got additional things. It's actually like you just change classes completely. So in Shadowlands, when you start at level 1, you're going to be an unspec'd priest. You're going to learn all these different abilities about all your different specs, and then when you pick a spec at 10, new things are going to come to you, and you're going to become a shadow priest or a discipline priest or whatnot. And a part of that is because, you know, I think what's pretty foundational is that classes are made up of elements of each and different spec, and then a spec doubles down on it. You know, all paladins can embrace the light to help their friends. All paladins protect their allies, and all paladins execute their enemies with divine judgment. But when you pick a spec, you really do that in a particular way. So one of the things we want to do is make sure we can do this and give you a lot of abilities. And so this is where the story of loss turns to the tide. Let's talk about some of the abilities that are coming back and why. So the first category of them are class-defining mechanics. These are spells that have a kind of unique hook. They kind of share a unique hook, and they help deliver class fantasy in a particular way. Like, does anybody know a paladin here, right? Paladins, they got a certain air about them, right? I'm not, and the way that was kind of expressed through the game was through auras. Whenever you looked at your tooltip, whenever you used to look at your buff bar and you saw that little shield, you knew that a paladin was with you. And that was important. That's the thing that they, when you're just in an RPG and you're playing with a paladin, he's always telling you how great the light is and stuff. That's just kind of a way to express it. Another idea is the idea of totems. Now, shamans still have some totems. Maybe they'll throw down capacitor totems to stun a bunch of enemies. Maybe they'll throw tremor totem. It's nice that we have these kind of occasional totems going down, but it's kind of always been a fact that totems were there all the time. So just giving back some persistent totems like healing stream totems to the whole class or searing totem, just to give a little additional presence that everybody will see these totems laying around there and know there's a shaman in their group. Are there any rogues here? Not anymore. You failed the first test of being a rogue. Just shouting out, I'm here, So rogues, when we were making assassination rogues in Legion, we said, they're going to be the poison spec. And so we just put all the poisons towards them. Well, no more. Poisons are going to be a rogue class-wide thing. Because, rogues are the only class that puts poisons on their weapons and is really sneaky in that way, really sneaky. And we think that's an important part of being their class. And the last one is warlocks and curses. So it used to be the case that every warlock could put one curse on one target, and they had to make an important choice there. Do I put Curse of Doom on there, and then later it's going to explode, and a Doom Guard will appear, and I'll be able to enslave it and have them join me? Or do I put Curse of Recklessness on there to make sure that these guys don't run away? And we thought that was a fun and cool choice, and we want to bring it back. Now, as I was mentioning before about classes leveling up, part of that is starting from 1 to 10, is starting unspec'd. Part of that is getting a little taste of every part of your class. And for some classes, they have different roles. And let's say Mage, for example, they're a damage-dealing spec. So we feel like it's important that you tap into the different schools that you have as a Mage, and then you specialize in a particular one. So let's say you start off learning Frostbolt, Fire Blast, Arcane Explosion. These are all different ways of dealing damage, and they're all done through different schools. But it still gives you that sense of like, I'm a mage, I'm a master of these elements, these arcane elements, fire and frost. But still, you know, when you pick a frost, you'll mostly be using frost spells for your rotation. Another idea is how those spell schools lean into a particular role. So let's give an example of priests. All priests can tap into the light to heal their friends, and they can harness the shadow to destroy their enemies. Now, a lot of you probably tap into the light to leap of faith your friends and destroy your allies. And you'll still be able to do that because it's beautiful. But the idea that a holy priest could cast Shadow Word Death to kill and finish off a mob, or a shadow priest rather than using Shadow Mend is using Flash Heal, it just kind of leans into that class fantasy of what am I doing now, what's my role, and the spell school supports that. And then kind of a minor point is the idea of the weapons that you get as part of your class. Let's say you're a shaman, you start with a mace and a shield, but if you're an elemental shaman, you never get the experience of smacking anybody with that mace, and we think that's pretty important. So like at level 1 to 10, you'll get Primal Strike, and you'll be going around hitting people with maces. Or if you're a warrior and you have your shield, and you get a little taste of what it's like to be with protection with shield block. And those are things that are going to go with you for a long time. Now, another category is just these iconic class abilities. So you made it clear they're just some abilities that they hold a special place in your heart, and you want to see them back. And like these are like spells that either their original incarnation were class-wide, or for whatever reason, you've just always had them, and we've taken them away. So here are just an example of a couple spells that are coming back class-wide. The second last. Another category of spells is a lot of abilities that went and became talents or honor talents. You know, we have this really cool system with talents, but it really relies on having compelling choices to make. And so for us, we thought, well, we're trying to clean up action bars. We want talents about interesting choices. Let's take some of these core abilities and we'll put them in the talent tree, and then it'll be great. And it was great, right? Okay, so it wasn't so great. So it wasn't so great, and for a lot of the feedback was that, hey, this doesn't even feel like a choice in this row. This is something that is so core and iconic to me. I want it all the time, so please give it to me. So these are some more examples of things that were talents that will be coming back. And the last category is just like me and you guys, long-lost friends, back together. These are abilities that are coming back, and you know they've been gone for a while, and they went away for different reasons. Maybe we couldn't find a lot of application for them. Maybe we felt like they stomped on the niche of another spec. Maybe they were used to kill your friends in ritualistic ways. Or maybe we just didn't appreciate how much you love mind controlling your pet and exploring the world. So this is just a taste of things that are coming back. I'm sure we'll hear from you, and we'd love to hear from you on the forums, on Twitter, in person, here at BlizzCon about anything I didn't list here. And all of these spells, the best part about World of Warcraft is taking these tools and using them in combat. In classes, we like to say that we bring the hammer and nails, and content, they bring the problems.